my therapist is always saying to me, like, what is the why? And I often have to check in with myself and ask that question, because sometimes when I'm dragging my feet on something, or I'm just not feeling motivated or whatever, when I check in on the why and I realize, like, well, I'm doing this for someone else, or I'm doing this because I think I'm supposed to, I don't want to let someone down, how will it make me look, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, oh, well, my why is all off.
I'm Charla Larston. I've been a TV writer for almost a decade, but it wasn't that long ago that quitting my day job and moving to Hollywood was nothing but a pipe dream. After lots of failures, many mistakes, and many lessons learned, I've now written for 7 TV shows, 2 features, and sold 3 TV pilots. I've done all this through imposter syndrome, burnout, and with zero roadmap. On the Working Writer podcast, I pull back the curtain on breaking in and teach screenwriters and creatives how to thrive both personally and professionally. Without further ado, let's get to work. What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Working Writer podcast. Thank you so much for joining me once again. And thank you for being super chill about this little break that I've taken. I needed to get my life together, so much appreciated. If you had listened to previous podcasts or seen some previous postings that I had made about possibly changing the Working Writer, just know that I decided to not change it. I've decided to just keep the podcast as it is, but what I have done is I have changed the newsletter to be more focused on procrastination and perfectionism and productivity and just like the other things that I want to talk about. So I'm really excited about that change. I've also started a YouTube channel called Work with Charla that talks about this same topics. So if you would like to see what I'm talking about over there, make sure to follow me at Work with Charla. The link will be down in the description. And to sign up for the newsletter, you should go to theworkingwriter.com/join. That link will also be down in the description. And right now, when you sign up for the newsletter, you'll also get my free guide to stop procrastinating and get in flow with your work. So make sure to sign up to get that free guide. I'm so excited about the guest for today. My guest is Franchesca Ramsey, aka Chescaleigh. She is an internet sensation. She's had shows on MTV, and she's currently a podcast host on Wondery. She also has a book out called Well, That Escalated Quickly that came out a while ago. She's been all over the place. She's super dope, and I'm excited for you to check out this episode. As usual, of course, we hear about her background, and Fran and I kind of get into some woo-woo stuff about psychology and self-love and things like that. One of my favorite topics. I hope you enjoy the episode, and I hope you get a lot out of it. Without any further ado, here's my episode with Franchesca Ramsey. Franchesca Ramsey, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you. I'm so excited that we're matchy today.
I know. Oh my God, I love it.
I love the dark skin with the red. I'm feeling it. You look absolutely stunning with your short haircut. We'll get into it, because this is a new identity that we're seeing. Yeah. It's newish,
Yeah, it's been it's been a minute, but yes.
It's been a minute, but I remember when it debuted. Yeah. Let's just start. Who are you? Where are you from? Like, what's your cultural background? How did you grow up?
My name is Franchesca Ramsey. Most people on the internet know me as Chescaleigh, which is a begrudged name. It was my email address, but it was because it was my email address, it became my YouTube name, and then that's how people started knowing me. I'm originally from West Palm Beach, Florida. I now live in Los Angeles, and I've lived here for 4 years. I moved here by way of New York in 2020.
I didn't realize you lived in LA right now. I thought you were in New York.
Yeah. No, I live in LA. I love it. People talk shit about LA, and I talked a lot of shit before I got here, and now I'm a walking stereotype. Every day I'm like, can you believe it? It's so nice outside.
But what did you have to talk shit about it? You've been to LA? Because we hung out in LA before.
You know what I think it is? I think just like when you live in New York, the Stockholm syndrome of it all. And like, I now know that Stockholm syndrome is a misnomer, and the guy that made it up was like full of shit. So, Shout out to Patty Hearst. But I will say that I think I was just like digging my heels in. I was just like, I live in New York, and New York
Right,
is
right,
better.
right.
And like, and just like, I don't know. Like, New York makes you so hardened
It
that
does.
it's like a badge of honor to live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I live here, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I love it
Yeah,
every day.
it's
I'm
wonderful.
happy.
Well,
Yeah,
here's because I was the same. I had the same,
everyone,
mindset. Everybody
everyone.
does. And it's because we're
Mhm.
we're like we're unknowingly kind of just
We've bought into the hype.
we bought
Yes.
into it.
Mhm.
But what I
Absolutely.
think it is, it's not that LA is better. It's just different. And I think that
Yes.
that's actually the caveat. It's just like, it is different. It's like, and I do think that you age out of New York a little bit, or a lot of us
Oh,
do.
that is so true. I saw someone say this, and I don't know who it was, but they said New York is fun hell and LA is shitty heaven,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
feel that in my bones.
100%.
Yeah, it's like delightful here, but like
100%.
if you're not mentally prepared for it, and I think you're so right about aging out, like this is a different pace of life. You are, for me, I knew when I was ready to move to LA, I wanted it to be a step up, not like a linear or
Mhm.
a downgrade.
Oh,
And you
nice.
really have to be mentally prepared for that because it is expensive here, and everything is spread out. It can feel very lonely here if you're not prepared for this version of life versus New York. Like, you can step outside and fall into a party, and
Right.
there's just so much going on, and like
All the
here
time.
does not
Yeah.
work that way.
100%. So I feel like when I go to New York, I get my dose of New York. And then when I go
Hmm.
to LA, I get my dose of
Oh,
LA.
New
It's
York
like, you
is
just got to know.
wonderful. New York is wonderful when I don't live there, when I know
Right.
I'm
100%.
leaving. It's incredible.
Wait, when did you move from, what did you say, Florida? West Palm
I
Beach, Florida?
moved,
Is that what you
yeah,
said?
I'm originally from West Palm Beach. I moved from Florida to New York in 2009. So I was in New York
Okay.
for 11 years.
Oh, wow. You did your time. You're
Oh,
good. You're
yeah, I got
free.
the New Yorker label, and then I got the
Yeah.
fuck out.
Get the fuck out. All right. I
Yeah.
love it. How did you grow up? Were you like an only child? Who are
I am
you?
oh my God, drag me. Yes,
Because I've never heard
like,
you talk about siblings.
I'm screaming only child. I am an only child through and through. My parents got divorced when I was in first grade, and luckily they still have like a very cordial relationship. So, I did every other weekend at my dad's, and
Beautiful.
I went to Catholic school, and then I went to art school. For acting, but I did visual arts while I was there, and I did music while I was there, and I've always just been like a multidisciplinary artist, and I'm
I love
very
it.
thankful that my parents have always nurtured that. And yeah, I mean, I just always knew I wanted a career in the arts. Like, as long as I can remember, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Okay, well then this is a perfect segue because
Mm.
like the primary question I have for you is that I remember when your shit white girls say
White
to
girls
black girls,
say,
or like,
yeah.
yeah, shit white girls say thing went viral. I remember you started posting very publicly about making this transition, like leaving your day job and like making the
Yeah.
transition to a creative career because you were getting all this attention. It felt like the right time. But you were also very publicly kind of posting about the anxiety about leaving your job and
Oh,
like the
yeah.
uncertainty and all this other stuff. Can you
I still
talk
have
about
that
that?
anxiety.
Can you talk about
Yeah.
that? Because I feel like a lot of people don't go into it. Like, even though we're all aware of the
Mhm.
uncertainty and all that other stuff, maybe it's just that people don't talk about it as openly. You know what I
Mm.
mean? About like the
Yeah.
possibility, like openly talking about like, oh, this might not work out, you know?
Yeah, no, it's so real. I was working as a graphic designer when I had that viral video, which was 2012. And I had been making videos for about 6 years. But, this was a very different era of the internet. There weren't full time YouTubers. We weren't even being called influencers at the time. And honestly, I don't really like that moniker because I don't sell myself as like a, hey, use my code, buy this product. Like, I'm just a creative that happens to use social media. So when I got the opportunity to like get repped by an agent and suddenly start getting all these job opportunities, and auditions and meetings. I could not do them and also work a full-time job. I was working at Ann Taylor, and doing like window display in the home office in Times Square. And I wore, like a button-down pants, and I
Yeah.
dressed like a professional every day. And I was like, what? I really want to give this a shot. This is what I've always wanted to do. But to your question about the stability, having a regular paycheck and having health insurance, and personally, I'm somebody that thrives on routine, and I really like knowing that I'm doing this Monday through Friday. And I was giving that up to pursue. I didn't know what I was pursuing. I was like, I guess I got repped as a writer, and I was genuinely flabbergasted. I was like, I'm not a writer. I'm an actress. And my agent was like, you're a writer. You wrote all these things, didn't you? So I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. And it was really stressful. It was fun, but it was really stressful. And I was trying to make YouTube content regularly because that was making me money. And it had a lot of ebbs and flows where, for me, like, consistency with creating content was always a struggle because I would just follow the money and the jobs. And so I'd be like, well, I'm not making a video this week, So I bounced around doing like public speaking, and yeah, public speaking was probably like my biggest thing. And then I sold a web series to MTV, and that kind of became like my main gig for a minute on top of everything else, and before I got hired on a TV show.
Mm-hmm. Was that
Yeah.
Decoded?
Yeah, so Decoded was initially, I was pitching a television show like based on my YouTube channel, and it was like sketches and social commentary, which is what I was doing on YouTube. And it didn't sell, but one of the places I pitched to was MTV. And they were like, would you be open to redeveloping this for web? Because they had a series called Brawless, which was like feminism, pop culture, but no sketches. And so they were like, we would, your thing could also be sketches, but straight to camera. And so I worked with a production company in New York, Core Neighbor Brown. They're incredible. And as you remember, you were in our writer's room for Decoded.
Yeah.
And
It
I'll
was my
never
first
forget,
writer's room.
you were the one who came up with Decoded. We were
I
all
remember.
pitching names. MTV wanted to call the show the race card, which,
Yeah, I remember.
oh my
Yeah.
God, the race card. And I don't know how you came up with it, but like you said it and we were all just like, ooh, it was so perfect. And yeah.
I love that. I think we were talking about like code switching. I think we were talking about like all of the things like that you have to figure out as a Black person walking in a white world.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what about? And I was so excited because it was my first writer's room, and I was just like, it wasn't. So I actually don't call this my first writer's room. I call Kimmy Schmidt my first writer's room because that was like what got me into the WGA, and this was it was different. It was like,
it was more of like,
but it was my first room,
brainstorm.
literally. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my
God. It was my first experience. Yeah.
It's so funny because honestly, and I'm sure we'll dig more into this through our conversation, but like Decoded opened so many doors for me. But I honestly am so proud of how many people I hired on that show. And like every single person that I worked with from that show has like an incredible career, and we're still friends, if not like, like super close, but like I can see you at a party and we're like, hey, oh my God,
yeah,
it's so good to see you. Like, and it feels like no time has passed. And I'm just like, wow, what an incredible incubator for talent. And I miss that. I will say that that's like something I don't feel like I have in LA. Like the community in New York is such that like you can genuinely fall into a production
100%.
or like you're talking about an idea and suddenly you're making a sketch.
100%.
Doesn't happen as much here, but yeah, Decoded was truly like, I still kind of can't believe I did it because it was a big deal at the time, and I don't think I always am cognizant of what a big deal it was.
I thought it was quite a big deal. I also thought it was like you were like part of that group of people where we were seeing people make stuff online and then to do stuff on TV. And
Yeah.
that wasn't, that like happened all at the same time. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't something that was happening that much
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, there really wasn't a model for it. And now it's genuinely so interesting. I feel like I'm fully an adult because I keep having these moments where I'm like, back in my day on the internet, we would do. And I'm like, who am I? But it's so true. Like
It's true.
now you start your online presence in hopes of getting an agent, getting a book deal, being on TV. Like that's not why any of us were making, that's not why I was making stuff. I was just like, oh, this is fun. And
Yeah.
I loved being a graphic designer. I loved my Ann Taylor discount. I would still have that
You
shit
talked about
if,
it.
if this didn't happen. I didn't think like this is how I will get into TV. Like I was trying whatever I could and the other things weren't working, but I loved the community on YouTube and I loved the creative challenge, and that's what I loved about being a graphic designer and kind of being a writer. It's like you have this problem and you have a limited amount of time to solve it, and you got to make it work, and you're on the clock and you got to go.
Well, it's interesting that you said that it's not the way that you thought you were going to get into the industry. Like, what
Yeah.
did you think it was going to be like? How did you think it was going to happen?
Well, I did go to acting school. I didn't finish acting school, but I went to acting school and I thought I was going to be an actress. And I left school. I wasn't really happy there. I got a part-time job working on the school public health's website, and I had like a little bit of HTML knowledge and a little bit of Photoshop knowledge, and I was getting paid really good money. And I was like, maybe I'll go to school for graphic design and I can be an actor at the same time or on the side. Like that's just how my brain decided to work. So I left and I went to school for graphic design, and I started doing stand up. I started making videos, and I thought like I would get discovered by an agent or something, and then I would get on a TV show, and I thought that would be it. Like that's just what I thought. And I kept having these moments where I would have something where I thought, oh, this is the moment that I'm making it, and then it just wouldn't happen. So I've just kind of had to continuously pivot and make opportunities for myself, and not necessarily lower my expectations, but like open myself up to the possibility that my life and career is supposed to be something that I didn't envision. I didn't envision this, but I'm very fortunate. I'm very thankful for the career and the life that I have. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. I thought I was going to be like an actress on a TV show, and I've been on some TV shows, but like that's not how I pay my bills. So
Yeah,
it's a nice perk,
100%.
but yeah.
Isn't that so funny? I also did not think that I was a writer necessarily.
Mm,
I actually don't know what I thought. I was just doing stand up, and I was
yeah.
just I made a web series, and I was just
Yeah.
doing what I was interested in. And it does seem that that is the way to go over and over. Like when I've gotten into ruts in my career, because those happen all the time,
Yeah.
or you get kind of pigeonholed into this thing. Like for instance, like I didn't think that I was going to be a writer, and all of a sudden my whole career is writers rooms.
Yeah.
And having to like really deal with that mentally, like trying to get good at something, and like, or not feeling like that's necessarily where I belong, but then at the same time sometimes I do think that I definitely belong there and things like that. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just saying random things, but
No, not
point
at
of
all. I
it's
mean,
yeah.
I I I appreciate hearing that, and I think the same way that you said you don't feel like a lot of creatives hear the real side of like how scary and what a risk it is. Similarly, I think it's easy to see someone like yourself or someone else and go like, wow, they're crushing it. They're booking all the jobs, they're doing all the things, and not knowing that the reality is you're like, okay, am I supposed to be here? I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't ever really go away is what I'm learning. And like I had brunch with a friend recently who's like a very successful actress, like on TV, nominated for awards, crushing it, big house. And she's like, girl, sometimes I'm like, am I good? I don't know. And I was like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
are like, what? And she's like, I never
Yeah.
watched the show. She's like, I
Yeah.
watched the show for the first time recently. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm good. And I was like, what are you talking about? But
No, it's
I kind of think it's
crazy.
everyone.
It's everyone. Everybody that I talk to is the same way. And that's the other point. Like that the thing that we think that we're supposed to do is not necessarily like the like direction the industry will take you in. Like I
Yeah.
thought maybe that I would do a lot more stand up or that I would do a lot more independent work and then all of a sudden I'm like, doing writers rooms or like you wanted to do acting and then
Yeah.
you're more writing and like I
Yeah.
have another successful friend who wanted to be an actress and she quit acting because she wasn't making any money and she found a lot more success as a writer. So it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's true. Sometimes like the industry will just take you in directions that you didn't necessarily anticipate for yourself. And it's about like being open. It's about
Yeah.
being open. Yeah.
I say that all of the time because when I speak at colleges a lot, and again, something I never thought, like I would go speak at acting schools and I'm like, I didn't fucking finish acting school, so
Yeah.
like it's y'all, the gag's on y'all that you are giving me money to be here, but okay.
Yeah.
And students are always like, how do I, do what it is you're doing? And I always tell them, I was like, I didn't know I would be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
What I'm doing, the career that I have, did not exist. When I was in school, there was no social media. I remember making YouTube videos because that's all there was at the time. And my teachers being like, what are you doing? Why
Yeah.
are you doing this? I would wake up early in the morning and I would be editing and I would leave parties early because I'd be like, sorry, I'm working on a thing. I would be, scouting at places to film and making costumes and doing all these things. And people were saying to me, I don't get it. Like, why are you doing this? And I did not know it would lead to me being able to make money and getting a
Yeah.
book deal. And, speaking at the Cannes Film Festival in France, like I never thought that, never. So I remind people like the thing you're supposed to be doing, it might not exist yet. The people you're supposed to be working with, they might still be stuck in their day job and they're trying to get to the creative thing, or they're talking about somebody that's like you and they just haven't met you yet, and thinking about my career in that way has helped in the times where I am like struggling and I'm like, what am I doing? And I'm just like, I don't know, but the thing I'm supposed to do is going to present itself. I can't control it and I don't know what it is.
How are you doing this? Like, how are you getting into the flow of life and just like accepting the fact that
Therapy. I got a meeting with
makes
that bitch
sense?
on Thursday. I cannot wait. Oh my God.
100%.
Shani, can you hear me talking about you? Yeah, I mean, that's the way that I get through. Candidly, I've had a hard time post the strike. I, like the strike was hard for everyone, but I think personally, I was holding on to this idea that life was going to be better after the strike. And so I think I kind of crashed in that respect, that like I got out and I was like, okay, I'm ready for things to be better. And like they just kind of weren't. And
Yeah.
so right now I'm in that like realignment stage where I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm going to do. I'm hosting 2 podcasts and like I'm so thankful for that because it's paid work. Again, not what I thought I would be doing, but I'm doing it and I'm thankful. I'm pitching another podcast. I hosted a podcast for Audible last year that's going to come out this fall, and the producers want to maybe do another podcast with me, so we're in the process of pitching it. I painted my whole apartment during the pandemic, and now I'm working with a wallpaper company, and like they want to
Oh, very
do
cool.
a line of wallpaper decals, and I'm like, okay, like not what I thought I was going to be doing, but I'm super excited about it.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I'm kind of exploring going back to my design roots, at least in the interim. And I do have some writing stuff in development, but as you know, that stuff doesn't pay. So,
Right.
so until someone buys one of the things, those are kind of just languishing as passion projects. But again, therapy and creating a routine for myself has been really helpful. And
What does your
finding
routine look like? Oh, sorry. Go
Well,
ahead. Finding other people.
I was going to say finding other creative exploits that like enrich me, and creative things that aren't tied to like I must sell this thing in order to pay my
Yeah.
rent. It's just like, no, I'm just making it cuz it's fun and I like it. Like that was what painting my apartment was, you know, and it wasn't like I have to go viral, I have to do these things.
Yeah.
I was just like I just want to paint. Like I just want to do something creative. So my routine right now, my only like hard things are I go to the gym. I was going 3 days a week. I'm going two because I'm trying to save my money. So I'm going
Okay.
Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. I'm at the gym. Monday mornings I do a hike with one of my best girlfriends. Friday evenings I play tennis with another good friend of mine. I record Black History for Real, which is my Wondery podcast, usually on any day from like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but usually in the afternoons. I start my quote unquote work day after 1 p.m. is when I say. So I can have the morning to
I
work
love that.
out, walk my dog, cook breakfast, you know, do like just do the chill Fran stuff. And then like my work day starts in the afternoon. And then what else? I try to multitask in the sense that if I'm filming something like podcast or interview or whatever and I've got my makeup on, I try to bang out some content. So I have like a little content schedule for myself. And yeah, I'm in my podcast with my best friend Delon comes out on Wednesdays. So like Tuesdays, I usually edit the video content and then post it. And then I do like Wednesdays and Fridays, I put out content for that. What else do I do? Yeah, I mean, other than that, it's pretty like open. And so like I need those pillars that keep me
Yeah.
stable, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Cause everything else is so up in the air. And
Fluid. Yeah.
yeah, and I just never know. And I audition a lot. I'm doing some voiceover stuff. So like, and that is always really last minute. It's like, can you do this tomorrow? And I'm like, I guess I'm recording this tomorrow. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
That sounds wonderful. It sounds like you're living, the quote unquote soft life,
Oh,
but
it's not. I mean, it's
it's not that
not
soft.
soft. It's not that soft. Honestly, like, I'm really thankful that I have all these talents and these abilities that I can juggle. But honestly, like, I'm really craving. I would love to just have one job. And I don't
Yeah.
have all of these jobs because I'm just like, oh, I love having 80 jobs. Like, no, I need to pay these bills. I live in a luxury building in LA and like the rent goes up
Mhm.
every year. So I'm like, I gotta pay these bills. Um, so, you know, the dream would be I would love to get staffed again. I have a feature in development that was in the Sundance Labs, and I am trying to finish it right now and would love for it to sell. And but as you know, like that's a long process. Even if it sells
Yeah.
tomorrow, I'm not getting paid tomorrow. It's not going into production
Yeah.
tomorrow. Um, so yeah, I'm figuring it out. I'm in a much better position than the average person, and I know that. But it's hard. Like staying self motivated is challenging.
Damn, that's real.
You know.
That's real. I do. I do. I love what you said about just doing things because you want to do them, because that's something that
Hmm.
I have kind of had to like rediscover as I started working in the industry, and I just became so like scarcity mindset work
Yeah.
focused.
Yeah.
Like take a job when it comes, whether you're even if you're tired, even if you're already overcommitted to so many other things, like
Yeah.
take it. And it like I've talked about it multiple times on this podcast. It just like completely burned me out. And I just started to like
Yeah.
kind of hate everything. Kind of just started to
That's
like
so real.
hate
That's so real.
writing and like
Yeah.
hate everything. So I've taken quite a long break, and like this podcast is one of the things that I've done, kind of just something that I just wanted to do that isn't dependent on somebody buying it, somebody developing it. I
Yes.
just want to do something for by
Y-
myself for myself.
yes. I think like, thank you for affirming and validating that. I think more creative people need to really understand that and like put it into practice because, being creative and getting paid is the dream, but the reality is once your creative passion becomes your job, it can very quickly become like, I hate this because you're not just getting to create, you're creating by committee, and it
You are.
sucks.
It does suck. And I do think that there's like, seasons for everything. Like there's a
Mhm.
season when you do need to like work a bunch and
Mhm.
get a sense of like what it's like to work to be a creative on a professional level. But then at the same time, it's like I don't think that there's any kind of guidebook to how to manage when it starts to become something that's not enjoyable anymore,
Yeah.
when you're losing your creative force, your creative ideas, like because you're just so burned out. So like I
Yeah.
do think it's just like different. Like Decoded was so much fun and you were so fantastic, even though you were brand new. Like I
Thank
would have
you.
never been able to tell that like this person doesn't know what they're doing. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that was jumping out at me when you were talking about, there being no guidebook and getting burnt out is creative people also have to take breaks where they just live their life. And that's
Yes,
when,
100%.
like, that's part of the work too. And when your creative passion becomes your job, like, it can be really hard to allow yourself that time because you're like, I must write. And it's like, okay, well, if you sit down and you're like, I'm writing right now, like, your brain doesn't just automatically turn on and start being
Right.
creative. Like, you need to take a walk, you need to go on a bad date, you need to like get
Yeah.
into an argument with your neighbor, like you need to do like life stuff. And then like that's when you're like, oh, that's how that
Yeah.
character story is supposed to be,
100%.
or whatever. And I feel the same way about creative things that are outside of your comfort zone. I started playing tennis during the pandemic and I love it. And I love the people I play tennis with. None of them are in the industry. I never talk about work. None of them know what I do. Every once in a while,
I love that.
someone's like, I think I saw you in the LA Times. And I'm like, maybe. And then we're just like, okay, bye. And then we just like, we just keep playing tennis. And it's so great. And I have so many great conversations with people. There's so many weird personalities. And there's like tennis drama. And we have like a little group chat and stuff, and little things happen at tennis that inspire me in other ways that I use in my work. And it's been such like a breath of fresh air for me. And I was never a sports person. I've never had like any sports talent because I went to art school. We didn't even have sports at my school. And it's been like the best thing for my brain. And I'm like, I get it now. Sports. I
Yeah.
understand.
I'm so happy for you. I have a similar experience because I don't know if you know, I live in Vancouver now. I think I mentioned it to you last time.
Yes, you did tell me that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I live in Vancouver now. And that's also, it's one of the things that I love about Vancouver is that like no one, I mean, there is industry here, like because things get shot in Vancouver, but it's so
Yeah.
not on the level that it is in LA. And it's like, even so, it's just like the culture here doesn't care as much about
Yeah.
like TV in general as the
Mhm.
US does. So
Yeah.
it's just like just calm and it just feels like nobody, like people will be like, oh cool, you're a screenwriter or whatever,
Yeah.
but like it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I that has been like a that's been like disorienting about LA versus New York. Like
Yeah, everybody
here,
does what you
every
do.
everybody, and not even just that, like a lot of people are aspiring, and like that's really interesting, and there's nothing wrong with being aspiring, but for me it's been interesting to navigate. Like, I don't think of myself as anybody. I'm just like whatever, I'm just like a nobody. But other people's perception of me in LA has been very interesting, where like you're at a party and you're talking to someone and they're being kind of rude and they're not interested in you, and then I get recognized and they're like, what,
Yeah,
wait, who are you? And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
well, 2 seconds ago you didn't want to fucking talk to me. Or they like or like, or someone's, again, not even that they're rude, they're just like, like kind of laissez-faire when you meet them. But then we get tagged in a picture together on Instagram, and then suddenly they're in my DMs like, I would love to take you to, I would love to do, and I'm
yeah,
like, well, that's really weird. And again, to me, like, I don't care. Like, and
yeah,
similarly with you, like, we know a lot of successful, talented people. I've been in some big fucking houses. I've been to
yeah,
parties. I've been to all these things, and I don't care. Like, I have people that in my life that are just normies at tennis, and they're just as funny and cool as like my friend who's been nominated for XYZ awards, you know? So
100%.
that's how I operate, but in LA, it's not like that in the industry that we're in, and that's been so disorienting.
It is, but it's also a great red flag. It's like, oh,
Yes.
like
Oh yeah.
it immediately like outs that person as someone who's not genuine, and like, or even if they did want to be genuine, it's something that they need to recognize about themselves,
Right.
that they're treating people based off of status. And it's really like, it's really like not attractive as somebody you want to be friends with, you know?
No,
Yeah.
it's so weird. And again, like I don't say that as like I'm a big deal, but that's why I feel like
No,
I'm
it's
like
super weird.
I'm like I'm nobody. Like I'm literally nobody. And it's like
Yeah.
yeah, it's very strange. But shout out to you for making the move to Vancouver. Like I'm sure that that's been really good for your psyche in the sense that like
It
just
has. It was
yeah.
it was my husband's job that moved us out here. It was like during the pandemic, and you know, he had
Mhm.
really not enjoyed LA. He just didn't love it, and we
Yeah.
had talked about moving somewhere else, but
And you're
the work
close.
was so I'm super close. The
Yeah.
work was so location dependent, you know, cuz
Yeah.
his job he can work from anywhere pretty much, you know, so cuz he works in tech, but like my job was super like I got to be on set, I got to be in the room, you know, and like
Yeah.
when the pandemic hit, it was kind of like everyone in LA was talking about it, like, oh, this is going to last for 2 weeks. I'm just like, have you ever heard of a
Oh
pandemic?
yeah. Oh
And I'm
yeah.
just like,
We
even the
all
news was
thought
talking about it like that. And I was like, that's insane. This is going to probably take a year at least. So I was like, if we want to
wow.
move,
You were
this
the
is the
only
time to
person
move.
I know that said that.
Nobody,
Everyone.
I was like, is it just because I'm not like super American? I'm super immigrant. Like I'm Haitian. So I'm just like, maybe
Mm.
it's because like I know I didn't understand the way that the
No.
US handled it.
Everyone would
Like,
I mean, listen,
yeah,
in hindsight
yeah,
ironically is 2020. But I
yeah.
listen, everyone was saying it was 2 weeks. Everyone. And so for me,
Everyone.
I
It
was
was
like,
insane.
yeah, okay, the 2 weeks. Sure, we'll be
No.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a blessing and a curse. Like I don't wish for us to relive the pandemic, and
No.
let's be honest,
No.
it's still ongoing. People are still getting COVID, but I will say in terms of the business, it did open up the possibility of like folks that don't live in New York and LA like working in the industry, and
100%.
that's huge. Like there's so many people who can't afford to move to New York or LA, or they have a family, or you know, whatever it might be, and Zoom being able to be a resource in a way that you can join a writer's room has been incredible. And it should have always been that way, but
I
now it
think
is this
so.
way.
And it to me, it like shined a light on how archaic some of these corporations are in the United
Yeah.
States. Like the United States has just such archaic ideas about work, about, you know,
Yes.
and I don't just mean like the country. I mean like my bosses, like that were only like a
Yeah.
few years older than me. Like the idea that, you know, that the culture of work in Hollywood would
Yeah.
change at all was just insane to them. And I'm just like, well, it's gonna have to. Like I remember like one of my reps was trying to like, you know, rush me because it's like whenever you're in development, it's a bunch of like hurry up and wait. Like
Yeah.
one of my reps
Of
was trying to
course.
like rush me to like get like a draft in, and I was like, we're in a global pandemic. Like they can freaking
Yeah.
wait. Like
Yeah.
also who gives a shit? There's no production, nothing's happening. Like don't even try to make it seem like this is urgent when I know for a fact this is not urgent. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I'm also dealing with other shit. You know what I mean? So I'm just
Yeah.
like
And especially because like you're gonna rush to get it into them, and then it's gonna take them a month to read
forever.
it.
Yeah.
It's gonna take them a
And I used to
month.
buy into it so much. I used to buy into it so much, like, oh my God, let me hurry
Yeah.
up. And I'm just like, y'all
No, of
could wait.
course.
Y'all could be on my schedule for once. But you were saying
Yeah.
something that I thought was really interesting, which was that, you know, you need to have a bigger life, you know, outside of
Yes.
just your creative work, which I think is totally, totally true, which is something that I'm finally learning and implementing in my life. But I think the other side of that coin is also having an identity that is not just your creative work.
Yes.
Because I think that that is one of the things that we struggle with so much. Like, because one of the things that I've kind of put on the back burner lately is stand up because I was just too exhausted. I'm just tired.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like becoming an old lady who just wants to be in my house, you know. I don't want to
Fair.
go out late, you know, that's just what it is. But like, it was so hard to even allow myself to start to imagine that I might not do that, because just the idea, like, because I'm just like, that's who I am and that's
Yeah.
what everybody knows me as. And I just had to like, it took a lot of like mental jujitsu to just be like, girl, you don't want to do it. So
Yeah.
why don't you be a person and not a performer first, you know?
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, that's been a process for me as well, just like listening to your body and listening to your heart. And
Yeah.
like if something is an absolute struggle for you, I say this to people all the time who reach out to me and they're like, I've been trying to write the script forever and like how do you get through it and da da da. And sometimes I'm like, if it's taken you a year and a half to write the script, like maybe you don't really want to fucking write that script. Because if you
Yeah.
really wanted to, if you really, really wanted to, you would write 1 page a day and you would get that shit done. But you don't want to. Something is telling you you don't really want to do this. And I think that people they take it as a moral failing where they're like, I couldn't do the thing. It's like every single person cannot be a screenwriter. I know it, like, again, and it sucks to say that, but like it, and that's not a bad thing. Like we need somebody needs to be a garbage man. Somebody needs to like work at the ice cream shop. Like somebody needs to work in HR. Like you can still be creative and it doesn't have to pay your bills and it doesn't have to define you, and you can be the girl that works in HR and you're like, yeah, I also like do improv. I also do whatever. It's not my life, it's not my career. It's something I do for fun. Bring back fun. Like what, like
Yeah.
it, and it's we rob ourselves of it to, and I'm guilty of it too, but we rob ourselves of just like the fun of being creative because we put all these expectations that like unless you sell $1 million picture, unless you win an Oscar, unless I live in a house that's this big and it's paid for by da 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 da, like none of that. No, just like do what you have to do to pay your bills, but then like have some fun and collaborate. And I'm in that place right now too, where I'm trying to get back to like, I just like making stuff. I just want to
Yeah.
make stuff. And so that's what I'm doing. I don't care if it goes viral. I don't care if it gets sold. Like, I do the things I have to, I'm doing these podcasts again, not the dream job to be a professional podcast host, but it's paying the bills, so I'll do
Yeah.
that, and then I'll do some like DIY projects, and that's it.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you about your book.
great.
If you've been struggling to finish your work, well, you're in luck because I have the perfect guide for you. It's called How to Stop Procrastinating and Get in Flow with Your Work. Right now, when you sign up for the Working Writer newsletter, you'll get it as a free download. So go to theworkingwriter.com/join and download your free guide today. So I know that, well, that Escalated Quickly came out a while ago.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give you a shout out because I remember reaching out to you because I was like, do I want to write a book? Like, what would that
Mm,
even be like? And
yeah.
I emailed you and you were so sweet. You immediately like sent me your proposal,
Yeah.
which looked so professional. And I was just like, what? Because not everybody is like that. Not everybody is willing to just
Mm,
like share information. Luckily, the friends that I have are like that. Like the friends that I have are very willing and open to sharing information and like
yeah.
giving me a blueprint and giving me a process. But like, what is that? What is that about for you? About like sharing, the
Yeah.
process.
I I like recently have honed in on the fact that like gift giving is my love language, and I think that that also is part of it. Like I love helping people. I love like offering encouragement. I for me get more out of it than the other person does. Just like the fulfillment of knowing that I like helped someone see something differently or I inspired them. Like whenever people send me messages and they're like, I painted a wall because of you, or I started my YouTube channel, or I made this thing, I'm just like, oh, great, I'm good. I could tap out. Like I love that so much. And I think, when it came to you reaching out about the book or anyone else, I know what it's like to be on the other side. And I have had so many times where I've reached out to people or, just wanted insight on their process or, hey, how do I do this? And got stonewalled or just got no response at all. And it's always such a bummer when that happens. So I just told myself I don't want to be that person. And I think folks that gatekeep in that way, it's coming from a place of like fear. To your point about that scarcity mindset of like, well, if Charla has a book, then I can't have a book. Like, what?
Right.
My book deal is done. Like, it's done. I don't lose anything. And also, like, we're not in competition with each other. Like, we're in our own lanes. Whatever it is that you do is and I'm also of the mind, especially when it comes to other Black women in the business, like your success is my success. So if a
100%.
door opens for you, my hope is that somebody else says like, oh, somebody that looks like her can be successful. And unfortunately, we do need that still. So it's like, well, then maybe it helps me down the line or it helps somebody else. And again, I didn't always have the language for it, but I now realize that that's just like intrinsic to my personality. I show up to every party with a gift. I have a gift drawer. I love a gift. If you ask me on the street, oh, I love your shoes. I'm like, I got them from this. Have you ever been to this place? I pull up the map. I'm like, here's where I got it from. And on Tuesdays they have a sale and it's in the back. I'm like, I love it. It just makes me feel good.
I love it. You're such a delight. I'm so happy for you. You're so happy. I love how happy you are.
Oh.
What has been like the biggest like disappointment / lesson that you've learned so far in this journey?
Yeah, candidly, I have sold so many things that have not gone to series. And the first time it happened was like really heartbreaking for me. And I just thought like, God, I'm a loser. And I had just built up that the show was going to go and and my life was going to change. And, maybe you've had this experience too, but like everyone on my team was doing that too. They were like, when the show goes, it's going to be, and like they were all like building me up. And then like I crashed so hard and I took it so personally. And I actually went to a WGA East like women's group like right after my Comedy Central show didn't go. And my friend dragged me and everybody went around the circle and introduced themselves and said like what they were working on. And every single woman in the circle was like, I sold a thing and then it died. I sold a thing here. And like, by the time it got to me, I was bawling. I was like, I thought like I was a loser. I thought that something was wrong with me. And every single person was like, no, everybody sold stuff that doesn't go. And one woman was like, none of my stuff goes, but my kids are in a nice school and that's how I pay for it. I sell a pilot every year. And so like when I stopped thinking about, something that I learned while I was doing my book is just formulating goals that were within my control. I can't control if the show goes to series, but I can write a really great first draft that I feel good about that then becomes a sample and maybe gets me my next job. I can, build relationships with the producers that I'm working with. I've become friends with people that I have worked with that, our show didn't go to series, but they are now a great friend that I get advice from and get opportunities to work with them elsewhere. So that was like a really big shift for me. And especially during the strike, like meeting people on the picket lines and just sharing stories and realizing like, oh, I'm getting like the same bullshit notes that everybody's getting. You start talking to other writers and you're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. This is just somebody else's opinion of my work. It doesn't mean that I'm not funny or smart enough or talented enough or whatever else. It's just one person's opinion of my work.
And it's specifically one person's opinion of whether or not your work will be economically successful. Like, is it economically viable in comparison to dozens of other pilots that they're testing and trying to figure out? Like, I think the thing that even I learned when I, sold things that didn't go and was so disappointed because the exact same thing was happening was like, everybody's talking about it. Everybody's treating you like you're going to do something,
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like realizing that you're just like Hollywood is a factory. You know, it is
Yes.
a entertainment factory, and it's just like there are thousands of great ideas, and your idea is special to you, and it can be special to other people, and whether or not it goes, I think, is like a really difficult I just think it hits us different. You know, like we're
Yeah.
not the people who are thinking about the finances of this idea. We're just thinking about what is the funniest, best, greatest thing that I can come up with. And then the other parts of the business get into it. And it kind of like, it forces, at least for me, it has forced me to like be very, um, just be very like mindful of like, what I want to share, when I want to share.
Hmm.
Like I'm in a time right now where I'm really being cocoony, like with my work. Like
Yeah.
I just want it for myself. Like I don't want to give it to
Yeah.
you to try to develop it and sell it. Like I want to make it because I know that if I spend 2 years or 3 years developing with you and you don't make it, I'm going to be super disappointed. And I just kind of want to see this thing and
Yeah.
what and like and it's become a kind of thing where it's like sometimes when I'm making something, this is something that I'll sell, and sometimes when I'm making something, this is something that I'm going to make, and that's just how it's going to have to be.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar place where I've been reassessing like what is it that I loved about making things in the first place, and it was the creative process and of course seeing it come to life, but kind of like you know, when it comes to the web series of it all, it's like I made stuff on a shoestring budget and I loved how it looked, and I mean it was hard, but it found an audience, and I wasn't chasing virality and I wasn't pitching to networks, and I was still really happy. And I'm like, how do I get back to that? And I just did a friend's feature acting in it, and I was so inspired watching him raise money for this thing and get all these great people involved. And I was like, wow, do I want to do that? I've never raised money for anything. I've
Me
never
neither.
asked people to give me money. I've never applied for grants. He went to Sundance and was like schmoozing at parties and asking people for money and like got a bunch of
Wow,
money. And I
that's
asked him, I was like,
ballsy.
it was so ballsy. And like, he just had a script and he like paid for himself to go to Sundance. And it was so inspiring. And it's really funny. I don't know if you saw J Lo's really terrible movie on Amazon.
No, but everybody's talked so
It's
badly about
horrific. It's horrific. It's horrific. But there's a making of documentary, and the making of documentary is incredible. It's the funniest fucking thing you'll ever watch. But what I
and it's
loved,
not supposed to be
it's not
funny.
supposed to be
It's not
funny.
a
It's not
comedy.
supposed to
No,
be.
no, no.
It's so sincere. It's so sincere. But what I loved about it is like JLo believes in herself like no one else fucking does. And I walked away from that movie being like, I need to believe in myself like JLo does. Every single person was like, this is a bad idea. Do not make this. This is dumb. This is a waste of money. And JLo was like, no, I will make this terrible thing and I need to see it through. And like invested her own money, and like of course it's easy when you have, you know, a bajillion dollars, but similarly like I could invest in, I'm taking like a voiceover class because I was like, I really like doing voiceover. And the producer I was working with works in audiobooks. And I was like, how do I get an audiobook? She's like, well, you might need to work with a coach who does audiobook stuff. And I looked into it and I was like, not cheap, not expensive, but I was like, oh, but I was like, you know what? I could fucking pay this money to learn how to do a thing that's going to help me do the thing I fucking want. How often do we say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to like spend the time. I'm not going to take the class. I'm not going to wake up early. I'm not going to leave the thing. You know, I'm going to stay out and do whatever. No, like if you really want to do the thing, you have to invest in yourself. And you also have to be like team Fran. You have to be like, I'm the fucking shit. This is amazing. And like, we're not inclined to do that. And I was just so inspired by my friend who's doing this film, by J Lo. Shout out to Jenny from the block. I'm like, I am gonna do the thing. That's what would J Lo do?
A
She would be
hundred
like, I
percent.
don't give a fuck. I will do it myself. And
I'm gonna do this horrible movie.
horrible. And guess what? We all watched it. Well, I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
I watched it. And
Yeah.
I was like an evangelist for that thing. I was like, you have to watch it. It's hysterical. It's
Because it's so
so
bad.
bad.
Okay, I have to watch
It's
it.
it's so bad. But you know what? Like here's what I thought about it is that like, and as writers, we do this all the time. You like focus on every fucking word and every character and every page, and like you're editing before you like write a line and then you delete it and you write a line and delete it, and you're like, I wasted so much time editing myself because I don't think it's good enough. And J Lo's like, oh, first draft, let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
Wait, she didn't write
what?
it, did she?
She sure the fuck did.
No.
She sure
I have to watch it.
watch
Oh
the
my
making
god.
of watch the
I'm
making
gonna
of
wait.
watch
Should I
both.
watch
It's
it first? Okay, I'll watch the movie
watch
first
the
and then the making
no,
of.
I think watch the making of first. Watch the
Okay.
making of first. Watch the making of first because it'll give you because
Okay.
I did them backwards, and everyone I know that watched the making of first ended up not liking the finished product but feeling more empathetic because you see how hard she worked on it. Like she's involved in like every moment of the creation process, and it's like it's really inspiring. I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah, I really liked that, and I took that kind of again what you were saying about like I like making stuff. So let me
Yeah.
just and it doesn't have to be no one else gets to decide if it's good or if it's profitable or whatever. Like do I like it?
Yeah.
The end. That's the most important.
And what you said too about the fact that like people are afraid of spending the time and investing the time. And one quote that I heard that I loved so much is the time is going to pass anyway. Like I think
Mm.
about that all the time. I'm like, yeah, the time is going to pass anyway. So how do you want to spend the time, you know?
Yeah. And I think, again, you invest time in what's important to you for better
Yeah.
or for worse. And you always find the time for what it is that you want to do. And there's nothing wrong with checking in with yourself and saying, if I'm dragging my feet on this thing, then
Yeah.
maybe it's not the thing. And
Do
that's
you actually
okay.
want to do it? Yeah.
Do you actually want to do it? And
Do
that
you
is a
actually care
hard,
about it? And that's something
yeah.
you should actually think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I
I,
think it's because like we just like we I think a lot of times we just kind of go with the flow of what we think we're supposed to be doing, like no
mhm.
shade. Like so many
Mhm.
of us have done that. And we're so in autopilot all the time. We're not thinking, we're not in touch with like, what do I actually want? Why am I actually doing this? Like,
Yeah.
like why am I killing myself? Do I even want this? Do I even actually want to do it? Am I interested in this? Like sometimes your resistance is you don't want to do it. And
Yeah.
you need to either figure out why you are doing this and figure out a way to want to do it or move on.
Yeah, I think also like the social media of it all has created this feedback loop of like performing success, performing productivity, performing talent, and again, I'm totally guilty of it. And so I always have to check in with myself and say like, am I doing this for myself or am I doing this because I believe it's going to give the appearance to other people that I'm successful, that I'm talented, that I like have it all together, that I'm productive, that I'm whatever. Like my therapist is always saying to me, like, what is the why? And I often have to check in with myself and ask that question because sometimes when I'm dragging my feet on something or I'm just not feeling motivated or whatever, when I check in on the why and I realize, like, well, I'm doing this for someone else, or I'm doing this because I think I'm supposed to, I don't want to let someone down. How will it make me look? Da, 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 da. And then I'm like, oh, well, my why is all off. So I'm going to say no. I can't
Yeah.
do this anymore, you know? Um, versus when I feel really turned up about something, even when it's hard, even when there's lots of hurdles and challenges, when my why is aligned, then I'm like, yeah, but I really want to do this because like, I think the story really needs to be told. So I just got to push through because I really believe that this is the one, you know, and I just got to make it the best possible no matter what, has been
Yeah.
really helpful for me.
I love that, and I feel like it's so true, but I feel like for me specifically, because I grew up with such a scarcity
Mm,
existence and a scarcity mentality, it was really hard for me to trust quote unquote alignment. It was really
yeah.
hard for me to trust like that I'm doing the right thing, and by not prioritizing economic success,
Yeah.
and I'm not talking about stability, because I think stability is a different thing. You know what I mean? Like I definitely think my scarcity mentality, even when I did become stable, I didn't recognize it as stable because I'm so like always thinking about like the other shoe's gonna drop and things like that.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that that's something that like reframing, or just like what I've actually literally had to do is literally look at my bank account and literally like look around at the things in my life and be like, everything's fine. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like this, like clearly there's something that's going on that lives in a place. There's a part of me, there's a part of my brain that lives in a place where where everything is still scarce, where nothing
Hmm.
is stable and nothing is secure. But the truth is that my reality is different than how I grew up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I've had to like remind myself about that constantly so that I can actually like live in the present moment and not live in the fear that I grew up in, you know, like the economic
Yeah.
instability that I grew up in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is going to sound very woo woo, so forgive me, but I
Girl, we
do live in
already
LA.
there.
I do live in LA, so this is who I am
I'm in
now. But
Vancouver. If you can imagine, it's even more woo woo. And I'm
oh, okay.
so into it.
Okay, good.
People are reading Gabor Mate here. I had a freaking conversation about Gabor Mate in the dog park.
Oh, well, I've always been very woo resistant. I've always been
Oh,
very like
same.
practical. I've always been very practical, but this is also just I think getting older, but also just the
Yeah.
stage and LA of it all, but also getting older. What I was going to say is that like part of your work as an adult is healing your inner child and realizing how much of your adulthood is linked to formative experiences in your childhood. And when you realize that about yourself, you recognize it in other people. And it's like a huge weight
Yeah.
off your shoulders because you're like, oh, you're a bitch because some shit went down in your childhood that you have not fucking processed and it has nothing to do with me. And then
Yeah.
you start recognizing that in yourself where you're like, I'm stressed about my financial situation because it's tied to when I was a child and I was worried about like when my next meal was going to happen, or we moved around a lot, or there wasn't any food in the fridge or whatever it is. And that is work that is really hard to do, but the fact that you even acknowledge it is a huge step. I mean, there's people that never get to that place and they are miserable because of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, what I've started doing some coaching with like other creatives and
Oh
like
wow.
solopreneurs, and it's been awesome. That's another thing that was aligned that I was really resistant to doing, because
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's not my identity. But I'm like, but it's actually really rewarding. It's really fun. And
Yeah.
it's one of the things that I recognize constantly. First I recognize it in myself, but I like we live so on autopilot, we live so
Mhm.
in our subconscious mind. It's the reason why I use mindfulness in what I teach to people, and like what I like the modalities that I use. Like mindfulness is the way to bring yourself back to the present moment, and it's the only way that you're gonna recognize that you're like acting out some past shit. That
Yeah.
you're like living in some past shit that is not actually the case anymore. You know, it's
Yeah.
the only way that I was able to recognize that, and recognizing that has changed everything. It's made it so much more like, it's just been like, oh, I'm safe. Like I'm okay now. Like
Yeah.
I don't live in the same place anymore. I'm an adult now. Like, you know, I have agency now. Like it's just
I
different, but it's so crazy how we can continue to just like live, not crazy, but it's amazing. And the mind
yeah.
is so amazing that we can continue to live in those places, in those spaces, even though we're not there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to add that that work is really powerful, but it's really scary too. And I
Oh
think for a lot of people
yeah.
it's just way more comfortable to just remain stagnant and not do that excavation because it's not like you don't just like flip a switch and you
For
learn
sure.
and you know what I mean? It's a long process, and I find that
For
people are
sure.
resistant in that respect, where they're like, okay, I'm doing therapy. I've gone to 3 therapy sessions and I'm not better yet. And it's like, yeah, you got to put
Yeah.
in like a year worth of work,
Try
sometimes
years.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
way more before
Yeah.
you're able to like really push past it, you know? And so again, it's just
But
not everyone's built for it.
the other thing about that is that, like, you know, we get comfortable in any situation because we're human beings and we're able to
Mhm.
normalize and adjust to any situation. But part of that is that we also get comfortable in our suffering. Like, I think people don't like people who are, you know, scared or unwilling or overwhelmed by the idea of having to do the work are not sometimes even aware that they're literally suffering every day.
Mhm.
Like, they're
Yeah.
living in this life where, for myself, for example, where I was living in this scarcity mindset where I don't have any power, I don't have any control, I don't have anything. Like, I'm living in like this insane fearfulness, in this insane state of fearfulness, in this insane state of like smallness, not letting myself like even fully like enjoy and celebrate the things that I have and how far I have
Mhm.
come and what I have accomplished. Like, and I was totally unaware of the fact that, dude, I'm fucking suffering, bro.
Yeah.
Like, until I woke up to the fact that, like, oh, like, I don't have to live that way. And like, doing the work is what alleviates that suffering. You know what? We really did get so woo woo. It's really unbelievable. It's
No, it's good.
unbelievable.
No, it's
Yeah,
really
I love
good.
it. Yeah.
No, it's a big deal. My best girlfriend slash work wife is so woo, and every time like little bits of it come out, she's always like, "Oh, I'm just so proud of you." Like
Yeah.
she's so sweet, because if I was in her position, like I would rub my nose in it. I would be like, "Yeah, you little like nasty bitch. I remember when you would talk." She's so nice. She's like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
beautiful." I'm like,
That's
"Oh,
so
like."
funny. No, we're all in our Oprah era, like before Taraji came out and talked shit.
Oh my god.
Pre-Oprah.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
We're all in our Oprah era. Well, is there anything that you want to leave with the creative community before we sign off?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I will say this is like a message for the creative community as much as it is a message to myself, that you just have to be kind to yourself. You know, like you're only human. There's only so many hours in the day. I find that there are times that I talk to myself in ways that I would never ever let anyone talk to my friends. It's like, why am I talking all this shit to myself, you know? And I think more of us, especially creative people, have to be better at that, at like self-soothing and like giving yourself props and being like, damn, my work is good, and like celebrating your wins and just pouring into yourself. um that is just as important as hitting those deadlines and taking those classes and getting those pages done. Like just the daily reminders and the daily investment of like, I'm doing this, I'm living my
Yeah.
dream, I'm making connections, I'm working with people I love, I'm, you know, waking up every day and like using my brain to create worlds for myself. Like
You're
all of
so
that's
happy. What the
incredible.
hell is going on?
I mean, you're catching me on a good. I listen. I'm on a podcast. What am I going to be like, guys? I'm really stressed about money.
No, I love it. I love seeing it.
But
I love
again,
it.
I
Yeah.
say I really mean it when I say this is advice I'm offering to the audience, but I'm also saying this as someone that like needs to hear this and believe it myself, and I have to continuously prioritize the work on myself that is like soothing to keep me pushing forward. Otherwise, I just wouldn't be able to do it. And there's days I don't want to do it. But
Yeah,
it's a practice for sure.
for sure. Well, absolute pleasure to have you on the
Oh,
show, Fran. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much.
yes. Thank you for
That's
having
it.
me.
Absolutely. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Franchesca Ramsey. I sure did. I hope you definitely got a lot out of it. That's all I got for now. Until next time, get out there, get to work.